Hi, good morning everyone. Let's get started with our next very important training session, which is on workflow for ABAP based export. In this particular training, we will talk about the different flow of the activities related with export and so what activities we need to perform in the source and the target system. So to get started, here you can see the source system task for a system which is lower than the NetWeaver 04. Okay, so basically this, depending on the database, update statistics is performed before the size calculation. Okay, so as a step one, what we have done is that we have run this program called smigr_create DLL, and we have generated the star.sql files. This is mainly for the BW based object. This generates the DDL statements for non-standard database objects into star.sql files. Okay, the next thing is the updation of database statistics. So basically the database statistics need to be current so that the read writes are basically during the export process the reads are much faster. Okay, so that is extremely important, otherwise it delays your export process, it becomes very longer. Okay, the next thing is about the R3 setup, that is SAP inst calls R3 LDCTL, basically the load control process, and R3 site check, these two tools to generate various control files for R3 load and to perform the size calculation for tables and indexes. R3 LDCTL will also do the size calculation for tables and indexes on release before 4.5a. So once the size for each table and index has been calculated, R3 setup or R3 site check computes the required table space size from table dd load d. Okay, so R3 setup, or basically in the newer one you may have the SAP INST as well, so it generates the db size.tpl. R3 sjchk generates db size.xml for SAP INST. So you can see the difference that in the older versions you have .tpl file for db size, and in the newer, that is SAP INST, you have the db size.xml. so it's in the XML format, just the format is different. Okay, so the next is about the optional migration monitor. Okay, so basically here you can see that exit for migration monitor. Okay, so basically when the migration monitor is used is when you are trying to do a manual export import process, that is you want to run the monitoring or run the import parallelly, or you want to manually do the import, so that is where you can use migration monitor. So migration monitor can be used to reduce the unload and load time significantly, because you will have a great control on the export import process there. That's why a special exit step was implemented to call migration monitor, since SAP INST for NetWeaver 2004 and earlier versions of SAP system can benefit from Migmon as well. That's why appropriate breakpoints have been implemented in this. So SAP INST Migmon calls the R3 load to generate task files for every str file. So we have seen in the directory structure that where the str files are, and using a package splitter you can split those files so that they are in a manageable size and which can increase the export time. Basically it can optimize the export time, not increase it. So that's why we use the package splitter. Okay, so basically what we have seen is, we have seen things like, say you are starting from SMIGR tool. Okay, you are using update statistics, followed by you are using the R3 load CTL and R3 site check using SAP INST, and you are creating your export dump, and using package splitter you are splitting those str files which are generated. Okay, then using R3 load task file, you are generating these files, and basically you are using Migmon to manually control the data export process, and using R3 load you are again exporting the data to the dump file. So that is pretty much on the source system tasks. So these are the sequence of activities which is happened in the actual export process, that is when you are performing an export. So these are the main activities that takes place in the export. Okay, now let's get into the target system quickly to give you a brief overview of what happens there. So depending on the database type, the database is installed. Okay, so we are installing the data. Here you can see that you are installing the database software, you are creating the database. Okay, so it depends on the type of the database. So these activities are database specific activities. Okay, and optional Migmon, basically it can be used to reduce the unload and load time significantly. A special exit step was implemented to call Migmon in SAP INST. Okay, multiple R3 load processes are called in parallel. Okay, so we are doing a parallel imports using R3 load, and after the data load it is necessary to run update statistics to achieve the best possible performance. Okay, so this is extremely important that we run the database update stats for the respective database, and ensuring ABAP DDIC consistency means the program DIPGN tab will be started to update the SAP system, that is activate the name tab from the database dictionary. Okay, so basically you are activating the name tabs over here, and the last step in each migration process is to create the database specific objects by calling SAP programs via RFC, and to be successful the password of user DDIC of client 00 must be known. So just take note that when you are performing an export you should record down the password for client 000 and user DDIC, because it will be used during the import process. And lastly, the report rs_bw_post migration is called as one of the post migration activities which are required to bring the system to a proper state. Okay, so these are pretty much the activities for the system which is lower than NetWeaver 2004. Okay, now let's get into this. Let's see the same things what happens in the system which is newer than this system. So let's get into this particular process. Okay, so here you are seeing the source system task for NetWeaver system which is greater than NetWeaver 2004, because there is a drastic change which has happened for systems after NetWeaver 2004. Okay, so in this you can see that some SAP INST functionalities have been removed and Migmon is called instead. Okay, and Migmon is performing more bigger role than it was doing previously, and after the export is completed Migmon gives the control back to SAP INST. Okay, so that is the main difference there. And here also you can see the same thing applies for the target system task also. So SAP INST uses Migmon for the import as well, and export and import can run at the same time as long as the target system has already been prepared. So basically this plays a bigger role because you can run the things in parallel, export import, and you just need to make sure that your target system is prepared for the parallel export import run. Okay, that is pretty much I wanted to cover in this particular training session. Thank you for joining and have a nice day. Bye bye.